amateur presentation.
Welcome back to another Untitled movie review at TIFF 22. I am one of your hosts, Matt Rohrbeck, alongside, he's allergic to tomatoes, but he is tomato meter approved, Eric Marchin.
Matt, I don't want to be your friend anymore.
No, that would hurt. I would say. Imagine we just did this like what happens in the movie. That would be.
Yeah, but who would you be, Brendan Gleeson or Colin Farrell?
I feel like you'd be Gleeson. I'd be Farrell.
I get to play with my fiddle.
Today we are reviewing Martin McDonagh's The Banshees of Inisherin. I will not call it The Banshees of Ed Sheeran as much as I want to. Eric, how are you doing?
Matt, it's day 6 of the film festival. How the fuck do you think I'm doing, or how the frick do you think I'm doing?
We were just talking. We just had some wonderful pizza at General Assembly.
Not a sponsor.
Not a sponsor, but it was good. With our friend Andrew Feigl, and we were talking about this, where I'm like, I'm not as... I'm pretty tired, but I'm like not... I think we haven't done a full festival in 3 years, so the last 2 have been hybrid or completely at home, so I feel like I'm still running off that high of being back.
The
at
adrenaline
TIFF.
of
yeah, like being at 25 movies-ish each right now, halfway through the festival.
I think that's
pretty
good.
impressive.
I think that's reasonable as well. Like,
really
I don't feel
good.
like it's gluttonous either.
No, I feel like I sometimes hit 25 movies in other years, and I'm like, all right, I'm good.
Yeah.
I don't need any more. I mean, I've gotten to almost 40 some years before too, but like,
which I don't know how we did that.
I know that seems like way too much.
But also, we did pre-screen some stuff, and we count ourselves very lucky there.
Yeah,
but,
true, and we do include all that. But
yeah,
but I'm feeling good. You know, I mean, we're recording a series of reviews from a day that I had yesterday personally. That was a little, the vibes were off a little bit for me, and I'll get into that in a moment.
Yeah.
But other
you weren't
than
vibing
that,
with
like,
it.
The festival has been like pretty consistent. Like, even if I've given a lot of 3s and 3.5s, like, I feel like I haven't hated much. There's a couple movies we really didn't like, but other than that, I'm like, I find something in them, or I think that they're okay, or something didn't work for me. But
and sometimes you need time to kind of think about the film a little bit as well before you kind of really make...
Yeah, I'm glad we didn't record this yesterday, because I've sat on it a little, and I'm not as harsh as I was last night.
But that's the thing with film festivals, right? Where, like, when you're seeing, you know, we've only seen about like 3 movies a day max, but when you're seeing multiple films a day and you're going from one screening to the next, not every film is paced the same way. Not every film has the same kind of style.
Depends what your mood is, how tired you are.
Exactly. There's so many factors going against it, I know, automatically.
So it's great when most things work, but Martin McDonagh's always been one of those guys that, for me, is hit or miss. I think people know what they like out of him. Like, I think there's 2 crowds, right? There's probably the people that are on my side of things that like the stuff that the people on the other side of things don't like, right? And I think there's those 2 sides.
I think you're saying the European and the American.
Yeah, which is like the American stuff, which I think a lot of people don't like from him. I like, and I think a lot of the European stuff that he's with In Bruges and this just didn't click with me. And that's interesting. But even his quote unquote American stuff, I'm using air quotes, I don't care that much about. Like, I liked both of them, but I haven't really thought about them or wanted to rewatch them. So anyways, we can get into this one.
Yeah, which is interesting because, like, I really do like Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri.
So you're kind of on both sides a little bit.
The one I think the only thing I don't really
is Seven Psychopaths.
Is Seven Psychopaths, but it's not that I even don't dislike it. It's just that's a movie that I was expecting more from. I was maybe more disappointed, like a disappointed parent. Where In Bruges, like, I remember seeing that the first time and being completely blown away. He had done shorts before. He won an Oscar for a short called Six Shooter with Brendan Gleeson in it. So that pairing of Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson and that script that got an Oscar nomination that was released in February of 2008 kind of really crackled and brought a dark comedic edge.
I worked at Cineplex at that time.
Yeah, and it's one of those films.
Empire of Light review.
It's one of those films that kind of establishes the style and tone in which he has kind of been operating ever since, and he hasn't really diverted, with the exception of some of them are more embedded in European culture and some of them are a little bit more kind of bristling in that, more kind of all-American tone, but still has the dark sensibilities of something that is European, because there's a lot of stuff.
His dark comedy is consistent throughout all of his stuff.
Because like in Ebbing, Missouri, there's stuff in there that would be right at home in Bruges, or in the movie we're reviewing, the Banshees of Inisherin, which is a movie that takes place on an island off the coast of Ireland.
100 years ago.
In 1923.
Oh, 23. Okay, my bad. 99 years ago.
It's a fictitious island named Inisherin, where former friends Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson have a falling out. One morning, Colin Farrell's character goes to visit Brendan Gleeson, and Gleeson decides that he no longer wants to be friends with him, no longer wants to talk to him, and to leave him alone so he can toil away with his music fiddle, and find some sort of accomplishment on his own, and contribute to the world of music and arts in general. And this really hurts Farrell's character to the point where he becomes obsessed to figuring out why Gleeson feels this way, and continually annoys him and annoys the people around him, pestering, whether it be his sister, played by Carrie Condon, in a really good performance, a breakout role. She's been around for a while, but this is definitely a scene-stealing role. Barry Cogan's in this, so another reunion with The Killing of the Sacred Deer.
Oh, right.
Barry Cogan's not eating any pasta in this, unfortunately, but he's kind of playing what a flick that was. Small-town kind of
there's
Joker
a dark comedy
type.
I can get behind.
And again, Colin Farrell and
I know I was going to bring up
Cogan
the
Batman as well. I mean, they don't have any scenes
Spoilers,
together,
I
and
guess?
Barry Cogan's not even in the theatrical cut anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But essentially, what you have is an allegory to
war
the
in general, but also
the Irish Civil
War,
War with the IRA, as that is happening on the mainland, and we kind of hear that throughout the film, whether bombs are going off and explosions, but it's kind of representative in a microcosm
of
on this island.
Men,
It's bleak. It's at times very unpleasant to watch. The characters can be extremely mean-spirited. If you really like In Bruges and Ebbing, Missouri, you probably will like this, or at least appreciate it. I don't know if it'll be your favorite. There's a lot of colloquialisms within the film as well. It's embedded in kind of like Irish folklore, biblical allegory. It almost kind of feels Shakespearean, with one of the characters who's kind of like almost like the town witch. She's referred to as a ghoul a lot of the times.
I did like that character.
I did too. I kind of like how she pops up.
Because I'm like, it's kind of like a fairy tale, right? Like
it's a folk tale, right? A yarn, and it does have a kind of whimsical quality, but I think a lot of that is cut by the banality and the cruelty of living in a very secluded location.
I think, it's a movie that I'm glad I've sat on a little bit, but like
had a couple drinks at the pub and thought about it.
I think this is a movie going in, you'll either know if you will kind of vibe with it or not. And for me, who it has been hit or miss. It's been with McDonagh. I was sort of looking forward to it, but worried because I don't like In Bruges all that much. And I think, my worries kind of came true, where right from the start, I went, man, this humor's not landing with me. And I feel like it's something, again, I talk about all the time, and I feel like that's the hardest thing when I consider myself a film critic, but I'm just someone who loves talking about movies, really, and just has an opinion. Comedy is, I think, the most subjective genre. So if this movie didn't work for me, mostly because of the comedy, I don't think that's a slight on the movie. It just didn't work for me. I sat pretty much stone-faced throughout the whole movie and lost interest pretty quick. I thought it was, McDonagh just being, bleak and dark for the sake of being bleak and dark. Yeah, and which is fine. And I do like that kind of when I started to think about it, going, okay, it was an allegory for war in general, just like how pointless it is, and how you just have to see things out when the other side is mad at you, and you
don't remember how it even started,
how
and
it
why
even
it started.
Why,
it just continues and goes on forever.
And the collateral damage that comes with that, and the self-inflicted pain that comes with that when you start a war. and things like that. So like that's the stuff I started to think about and started to appreciate a little bit more from the movie.
Yeah.
Even though the comedy, which it is a straight up dark comedy, if that doesn't work with you, it's hard to get invested in all that other stuff.
Yeah,
And-
we've talked about that
yeah.
though before with like even something like with like I think someone that you can compare Martin McDonagh to a little bit is someone like Guy Ritchie.
Yeah.
Where like Guy Ritchie's style and sensibilities works for some people, and like specifically that kind of like vulgar European kind of attitude and angst and anarchy that comes out, and that there's that in this, but I think it is a little more Martin McDonagh is a much better filmmaker than Guy Ritchie.
I agree,
but
with
still
that.
has some of that style as well that's kind of like abrasive.
Yes, absolutely. And the humor for me was just like a lot of repeating sentences and repeating the joke over again. So like one character would say something and then the other character would just repeat what they said. And then
What the frick?
And then that was the joke. And I'm just like, it's not working for me. I think the performances are all really solid. I like everyone involved. I think it looks great. Like, so there is some stuff to like there, but I'm just hard pressed because I know it's the most simple criticism ever and it's the most subjective thing, but I was just like right away I'm like, I do not think this is funny, and it's hard for me to get into it. I know you liked it though, so go ahead.
I did. But I also understand where you're coming from, because I think that like if you are not connecting or appreciating that darker tone, and it is tough to get into. Like his stuff is very bitter and it's biting, and it can be very painful and hurtful, especially if there's a character
not super optimistic or
no,
anything
especially if there is a character you like. Like Colin Farrell's character is a very likable character for the most part, in the sense that like he's not a bad person, and they even say that like he's a nice guy, and like he's always being picked on by the town for being quote unquote dull unless he's drinking whiskey, and then he becomes kind of more confident in his sort of approach to things. But yeah, like there's just something about his writing, because he is a playwright and he's a theater director as well, that it lends itself to that style that is stagey, but at the same time still works on a cinematic kind of quality. Like you look at The Whale, you can tell
is a stage
is very
play.
much a stage play. This isn't, but you can
yeah.
tell that
it's stagey.
It's stagey,
but
he's able to find a balance between the cinematic and sort of the dialogue and the crispness of the acting and just the locations. But yeah, there's something about that allegory that I think works really well in terms of kind of boiling it down in a way that you can kind of explain something that can be overly complicated by saying how ridiculous this situation is, especially when it's between two grown men who are acting like 12-year-olds. I think it's a really good, I think it would be a really good movie to show in a civics class, where it's like, okay, like if you want to learn about sort of the divide between the North and South in Ireland and Protestants and Catholics,
but in
and
like a interesting, engaging,
or even just in a more simplistic manner, right? That kind of gets it on the ground level. Like I could see this being adapted into something for like Palestine and Israel in a way as well. Like I could see like a production of this going in that direction.
War, really.
Yeah, but specifically with like civil war, right? Like the idea of
I get what you're saying, because two people in the town that were friends before, and then one decides not to be, but then it escalates because one is pushing the other, and then one crosses the line, and then it becomes something else, and you can't even remember why you started it and why you're feuding in the first place. And there's a really good line in the film about these two characters that are in the pub that are kind of talking about, there used to be a time where the Irish was, the Irish only had to worry about England, that they were fighting against England because of colonialism and repression and things, and now it's more confusing because we're fighting ourselves, or we're fighting each other. And I think like that kind of sums up the movie really well in what it's kind of trying to surmise in its storytelling. And what's interesting about that is I didn't even clue, maybe I'm just a fucking idiot, or it's day 5 of the festival, like I didn't even clue into that until like after the movie when I was thinking about it. Which I found interesting, but I think it was just maybe because my brain sort of went, I don't like this, or like I don't like the humor. I'm snapping. Sorry if you could hear that. Not sorry, but I guess it was intentional.
You're so Canadian.
I don't know what's happening anymore.
Sorry.
Yeah, I would like a Canadian version of this to see what that would be like. And again, I actually appreciate it more for that. And I'm wondering now, knowing that that's what it's about, if I would like it more on rewatch.
Right.
You know what I mean? I don't know. The humor still probably wouldn't land for me.
Well, it's like when we were talking about Bros, right? Like sometimes if the humor doesn't work, that can, lower your rating, or you can kind of be more critical of that, because part of it is still a comedy.
Yeah. Or it makes you lose that allegory because I'm not thinking about that, because I'm thinking about how I don't like the humor.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
Yeah. And it is making some pointed criticisms about police corruption as well, and abuse, and again, like the idea of patriarchal society kind of dominating and becoming more violent, and sort of how to deal with a conflict instead of actually talking it out or listening. Or like there's one sequence in the film that I think a lot of people, while we were watching anyways, really liked, that involved kind of like a back and forth when
with the male
Farrell's kind of talking to a police officer specifically in the pub. It's one of those movies that I think like you will, if you like Martin McDonagh stuff, you'll like this.
Like it. Yeah, if you don't, you're not going to.
Yeah, if you're into European dark comedies with a bit of kind of edge to them that have violence and some kind of profane but also profound qualities, then you're gonna get something out of this. Is it my favorite Martin McDonagh movie? I still think In Bruges is my favorite of his stuff, but I do like Three Billboards a lot as well.
Which a lot of people have turned on, and I'd be curious.
I think because it won the People's Choice Award at TIFF. It did really well with the Academy. Frances McDormand won her second Oscar for that.
Did it win Best Picture?
No,
it lost.
No, it lost to Shape of Water. It was
right.
It was 2017.
That year. Yeah, it was that year.
I think because the movie was so well received, and like Sam Rockwell won the Oscar for supporting actor. I just want to quickly talk about Colin Farrell again. Like I think.
He is very good in the movie.
He's one of those guys that's always been a really good actor, and like you look at his career, it's really fascinating. Where after Tigerland, like literally, the studio system was trying to make him into a movie star with films like The Recruit and SWAT, and then after a while, his box office cachet kind of faded, because you become a commodity for a little bit, and if you don't really kind of become that movie marquee, you're kind of left to your own devices. But he's reinvented himself and become this really great character actor. And you look at this year
alone.
After Yang, which I think is my favorite performance of his of this year, which is such an internalized, introspective work. And then he goes and does something where he's literally chewing up the scenery with the Batman, which was released the same weekend as After Yang. Yeah. But he's having so much fun with that role and disappears quite literally into it. And then, didn't love the movie, but he's doing solid, subtle work in 13 Lives. Now this, and like even when he started working with Yorgos Lanthimos, I think around that time is when he's
super versatile actor, right? That like I don't think when you're watching Colin Farrell, I go, oh, it's Colin Farrell. I can't get past it. Right?
No,
like I do lose myself in mostly everything that he's done lately. So I completely agree with you there.
He's always a welcomed presence.
Brendan
in
Gleeson
film.
too. I really like.
Brendan Gleeson. That's the other thing we should mention. So I interviewed Brendan Gleeson for The Grand Seduction,
right?
And I was talking to him about, like what he liked about working on that film, that movie taking place in the Maritime Province. He actually plays the fiddle and hangs out in pubs, and to me. Yeah. Like he's very comfortable in that, and you can see that in this movie, that like other than the awkwardness between him and Farrell's characters, like there is something there where it's just like he feels so at home and so embedded in the culture that is his, but like that sometimes is hard to convey on the screen. And he's always he's amazing in Bruges, and like he's always a solid addition to any movie that he's in. Like even something like as silly as Lake Placid, I think he's awesome in that.
Yeah, I forgot. Shout out to him. All right, I
love his hair. His hair was amazing in that movie. In this movie,
yeah, very good. I made this joke on Twitter: the 0 fingers out of 5. I'm not giving it a 0 out of 5. That was a joke about the movie. This movie. At first, I really didn't like it when I left the theater. thought about it more, and I was like, I still don't really vibe with it, but I can appreciate elements of it. But I still don't quite like it. So I'm going to give the movie a 2.5, which sounds harsh, but I hope you listen to this whole thing and realize there are redeeming elements to the movie. And if you, like Eric said, vibe with his other movies, or just vibe with, Irish comedies or dark comedies, like you might vibe with this. But me personally, didn't quite work, so a 2.5.
Yeah, and just because you're giving it a 2.5 doesn't mean like that's the rating you have to stick with for the rest of your life.
No,
you can go back and give it a 2. You can go back and give it a 3.
I'm after talking.
You can stay at 2.5
and sitting on it. I was like, okay, the allegory stuff is like interesting. Performances are good. It's shot well. The score is nice. We haven't talked about that, but I think like, if a comedy doesn't land with you, it's hard to get into the rest of that stuff.
It is.
So.
And that is kind of, the main kind of goal of this movie is to make you laugh at things that maybe you're not supposed to laugh at, right? But you're doing it with an audience and kind of feel less guilty for doing it. I'm going to give it a 4 because I really did like it quite a bit. But ratings are so arbitrary.
We're too nice to each other. We should have yelled at each other during this review.
I should have cut off my fingers and thrown them at you. There's a donkey in this as well that I really liked.
Yeah.
Quite a bit.
Good use of donkey. Good use of
livestock
in
this.
General,
And quickly, there's one other scene that I really did like, and it's not really a spoiler, but it's a moment that kind of shows, because you never actually see their friendship in the film, like their actual friendship, because you start on the day when Brendan Gleeson's character doesn't want to be a friend anymore.
I think you get that conveyed
That's
through
what
how
I'm
much
saying.
it hurts Colin Farrell's
But
character.
there is a moment in this film, a wagon ride, that kind of conveys, okay, they're like, you see the time before the movie began.
That's true.
In this moment.
Yeah, you are absolutely right. And I also want to give a shout out to the bartender. I liked him.
Yeah, he's really good.
He's good. Like I would want to drink at that dude's bar. He seems great.
Yeah.
But I love that brings that small town vibe, right? Like
yes.
Everyone knows who everyone is.
And you can't escape, really.
Everyone talks to one another. Like even the scene with the mail clerk and like at the
that is funny.
store.
What news do you have?
Like that's the kind of small town gossip stuff. Like I get it. It just didn't vibe.
Yeah.
I just didn't vibe with it. So thank you all for listening. We really do appreciate it. As some random music now starts. I don't know what the hell's premiering or what's even happening tonight, but go check out our other reviews. You can check out our review for Empire of Light, for The Fablemans, for Glass Onion, for Bros, for Brother, for The Swimmers, for Weird, for Women Talking. I don't know if I already mentioned that, but like tons of stuff. So you're probably already in the right spot if you're listening to this on podcast services. If you're on YouTube, we appreciate you listening to an audio podcast on YouTube. But just one-stop shop for everything is Untitled_movies over on Letterboxd. You can check out more of my work on Family Feud Canada right now, which is airing Monday through Thursday at 7:30 p.m. on CBC and CBC Gem. And you can follow me on all those social medias at Matt Rohrbeck.
And I'm Eric Marchin. You can find more of my video reviews on RogersTV.com/CinemaScene and on the social medias at EM6211.
Until next time.
Motherfricker.
Fuck you.